And the last one we will do is Mr. Eric Blake. And he says, Vectron Whittle, I like the approach, good lead. So the Oscars announced no host this year in the wake of Kevin Hart and so forth. So hypothetical scenario. You're the boss of the Academy. Who would you appoint to host the Oscars, and how else would you clean up the ceremony? I would appoint myself to host it, and I would clean up the cemetery. That's what I meant to say. The ceremony. I'd clean up the cemetery by basically informing them that it is in fact a cemetery. Sometimes the Freudian slips really can tell you a lot. Clean up the Oscar cemetery. And I remember a couple months ago we were talking about BillWhittle.com subscribers, and I said BillWhittle.com survivors, and that rang too. The fact that they, I mean, we were talking just a minute ago about them going too far. It's one thing to chase people out of the college and to chase them out of society, but when you chase them into where they've gone to get away from you, into their caves or their dens, basically, then you're going to start get people growling and biting back. And in a way, I didn't hear this news, by the way, about there not being a host or hostess or hostiatrix. But it's kind of the ultimate concession that this political correctness is just a fire that consumes its own. They're basically saying that this young, hip, black comedian is not liberal enough for us. In fact, what they're saying is no one is predictably liberal enough for us. And since there's nobody liberal enough for us, we can't have a host, because who knows if they may have said something that would have been offensive to some person someday, somewhere. Darkwater says it's host privilege. That's exactly right. They're suffering. They need to check their privilege. Then there you go. It's almost like a kind of a sick kind of game, and it's kind of like it's like a car there's a bridge out and you're on a road and it's raining, and as you turn the corner you see the bridge is out and you step on the brakes, and the question is, what's going to happen first? Are you going to be able to stop, or is it going to just go over the edge? And that's what I think about with our society now. Are conservatives going to surrender to the left, which is going over the cliff, or can we hang on long enough for them to simply run out of speed, just run out of energy? They cannot have, yes, love it, Uptick Mick, love it. They should have had participation Oscars. Exactly. What a genius idea that is. That's the best idea I've ever heard, ever. I think that's the best political idea I've heard in 10 years. Exactly. The answer is to say all actors deserve the Best Actor award. We can't give the Best Actor statue to one person. They all deserve it. Who are we to say that one person's efforts are better than somebody else's? And who are we to signal somebody out for special recognition when there are other actors who are perfectly good actors, in many cases as fine or as good as somebody else? How can we possibly give out a Best Actor award or a Best Picture award? That's the answer. That's the answer. It's just great. I love it. I love it so much. It's just absolutely brilliant. Exactly. This is what your worldview says. No one's better than anybody else. No one can make any judgments about anything. No one's allowed to have an opinion on anything. And that's what we're going to enforce on everybody. So therefore, enforce it on yourselves. And you don't get your applause, which is the fuel for which you live. This is your oxygen, is this people applauding you and taking pictures of you. Well, that's all going to go, because it's not fair that you should be singled out, There are plenty of immigrant actors, for example, who are locked out of Hollywood by this this privilege, and why don't they deserve a chance? And if I said this to that audience, most of them would believe me. Most of them would say he's right. He's right. We shouldn't have a Best Picture, and he's right. We should turn over our roles to immigrant actors or gender fluid actors, or why should we continue to give this award to actors of talent when we should be giving it to all actors? It's beautiful. It's great. You see, the thing that I know a little bit more of than you guys, only because I've lived here long enough and I've moved in these circles and I've seen it firsthand. You've seen it as much as the rest of the culture has, but you haven't really seen behind the scenes. You have no idea how barking mad insane these people are. I mean, you just have no idea how crazy they are and how tiny they are and how petty they are. For years now, certainly since I was working on the Shootout show that started in 2003, I'm sure it's much longer, that's probably 30 or 40 years now. Used to be the Academy Awards. Okay. It's a chance for us to dress up in the studios, get some mileage out of it, publicity, and so on. And then we have to add the Golden Globes, because some people don't get Academy Awards and some people aren't making money off the Academy Awards, so they have to make something off else, so we have the Golden Globes. And then we have the People's Choice Awards, and then we have the SAG Guild Awards. Then we have the Directors Guild Award, we have the Writers Guild Awards. We have all of these awards. And the term for this out here is kudos season. And it's all you need to know about the mental state of the people who are telling you that they're better than they are. The people who are out here shaping the culture, not just the actors, but the producers, writers, all of them, live for an Oscar nomination or an Emmy nomination or a Grammy. It's so ironic that these people who've been talking about the participation trophy generation and basically invented the idea, their dearest wish, for which they would sacrifice a limb without any problem whatsoever, is to have a little golden idol that they can put on their mantelpiece to show other people that they're better than they are. When you go into an actor's house and you see pretty much every one of them, the first thing you see when you come in is the Oscar or Oscars. He's basically saying, yeah, I'm a much better actor than you or anybody else. And they live for this. Because as a general rule, people in show business are all about getting the recognition that they didn't get when they were young, and they will do anything for it. And one of the things they'll do for it is tell everybody that we should allow homeless people to live on our doorsteps. Who are we to say that just because we can afford a house that we should have this property to ourselves? They'll say that in public, then they'll go to their compounds and lock themselves in, like any sensible person would. But the need, it's just an endless bottomless pit of need, of ego need, and you can shovel coal into that thing day and night, and you will never, ever, ever, ever make them happy. In fact, I've often felt that, now obviously there are exceptions, but I've often felt that there's probably nothing worse that can happen to a particular kind of person than to become a movie star. Because the kind of person that's driven by that is a person with no sense of internal self-respect or even identity. They know that that if they get rich, they'll be happy. If they get famous, they'll be happy. If they become a celebrity, they'll be happy. And they're utterly convinced of this, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 million people behind the orange wall back there are convinced of it. Some of them are working actors, most of them are waiting tables, but they know that someday they're going to have a chance to show off, and maybe they have real talent, maybe they don't, but what they really want is they want to be recognized, and I want to be recognized too. I'm far from immune for this, and when people think I'm making a judgment about them, the reason I do what I do is because I'm one of them. But they want recognition, and they want the fame, and they want the money, and they want all of it. They know enough from watching from the outside the the absolute incredible aphrodisiac effect of fame has on women as a general rule. It's just really shocking. And if you need any evidence of this, just look at some of the people that Mick Jagger has dated. So they want it all. They know that if they can get the role and knock it out and get another role and knock that out, then they will become famous actors. And then they will have everything. They will have recognition. They'll have lots of money. They'll get to do their job, which is kind of a play job. Mine's a play job too. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I live in this Star Trek museum, which is paid for by you wonderful people, and I think about things and talk about them. As Xtesh just said, you love me. You really love me. This is Sally Fields. This is Sally Fields after 2 or 3 decades of working in the field, 2 or 3 decades of being a very good actor. And Sally Fields gets her Oscar and gushes, "You like me, you really like me," or "love me." I forget. I think it's "like me." "You like me, you really like me." Here's the proof. See, you couldn't possibly like me because of the fact I'm a nice person. Here's the proof. I've got the tink 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 tink. I've got the evidence. I've got the gold statue. It's a shame. It's a shame. It's a guy with a sword. Really should have been a golden calf. Honestly, would have been a much better, much cleaner kind of a transaction if it was a little golden calf that they could worship. Now Martin Archer. Now this is something that interests me. Martin Archer says live, if you're watching live, it's always fun. "You wouldn't believe some of the things I saw as a manager of a popular restaurant on Melrose Avenue." I would, Martin, but I'll bet most people wouldn't. Do you have time to type me up a quick story? And while you're doing that, I'll tell you mine. I was a limo driver when I got out to LA in 1988 and drove limousines until 1992. We were based in Pasadena, taking executives to the airport, and I didn't get to deal with very many movie stars at all. I leapt on the chance to drive DeForest Kelley, which was one of the high points of my life, but other than that, not too many. But there were limousine companies that did nothing but cater to celebrities. And we weren't one of them, and that was fine with me. But there's a place called the Pasadena Playhouse, and we're based in Pasadena. And one night, I got an order to pick up somebody from the Pasadena Playhouse, where they were doing, what's the name of that play? It's a play where they're reading from books. It slipped my mind. The nice thing is it pops up whenever I need to know something. It automatically appears in 6, 7, 8 seconds. It's a story where 2 people are reading love letters back to each other. Maybe it's called Love Letters. I think maybe that's it. Anyway, it's the kind of thing where both actors stand at a podium and they read this thing opposite each other. And so I go to the theater to pick up somebody backstage, and what do you know? Not big names, but I knew who they were. Meredith Baxter Birney got in the back, and she was dating, apparently, felt like she was married to another actor named Dan Hedaya, who's just fantastic. He's in Buckaroo Banzai, and and in Blood Simple. He's a really, really interesting character actor. Holy cow, Dan Hedaya and Meredith Baxter Birney. So I drive. I don't say a word. They don't want to talk to me. It's interesting that when you're a limousine driver, they really assume that you're just deaf. You can't hear a thing. You're made out of stone. You're not a real person. Why would they care about you? It's not like not like that driver is ever gonna have enough of an audience to talk about this. Okay, so we're driving from Pasadena to her house in Brentwood, I think it was, which is about a 40-minute drive at nighttime. And she got into the car, and we closed the door, and I started driving off, and it went a little something like this. "I was just awful." "No, honey, you were great." Meredith Baxter Birney was the one on stage. "No, I was just terrible. I was terrible. I flubbed every single line." "Baby, you got laughs. Everything you said, you got laughs in all the right places. People just went crazy. And I look so old. I just look so old. I can't believe how old I look." "No, honey, honestly, you look fantastic, darling. You look absolutely wonderful. I didn't even know the inflections. I just blew all of my cues." "But, honey," now imagine that at that pace and at that emotional pitch for 40 minutes. You think you can imagine it for 40 minutes, but you can't, because when you've heard this for 10 minutes, you begin to get the DTs. And after 30 minutes, you want to simply pull the car over, get out a tire iron, and put this poor person out of her misery. And that's exactly what it was. It was a well-known, wealthy, famous actress, good-looking woman who was Eric says, was she serious or just fishing for compliments? She was seriously fishing for compliments. She was so utterly insecure and so utterly neurotic that she needed 40 minutes of constant reassurance in order to get through the ride home. You know? It's just pathetic. It was just pathetic. I felt sorry for her. I really did. I thought she needs to be in a home, in a hospital. And I thought, my God, you know, you're Meredith Baxter Birney. That's not the same exactly thing as being Angelina Jolie, but people recognize you everywhere. You were on television for a long time. You were in, what was the family thing with Michael J. Fox? And then she was also in Bridget Loves Bernie. And so she was well known. And she's wealthy, and she's living in this incredible house in this incredibly Tony neighborhood. She's made a living at doing what she wants to do in a very tough profession. Family ties, thank you. And she's completely just bat guano insane, just insane. And my respect for Dan Hedaya went up and down at the same time. And I'll just leave it at that. But anyway, so let's see what our friend Martin Archer has to say about these people that I've hung around with and he's hung around with. They're not the very best people I've ever met. So Martin Archer, who apparently used to help manage a restaurant on Melrose Avenue, says Jerry Seinfeld used to come in with a buddy when his show was still on. More than once, this group of guys would seat themselves near him. They would always have an attractive, busty girl with them, and they'd get her to show off and fondle her almost bare breasts in order to try and attract Seinfeld's attention. That's impressive. So you go to a restaurant and you know Jerry Seinfeld frequents the restaurant, and you're either a comedy writer or a comic actor. He's hiring, and so you come to this restaurant time and time again with a half-naked woman, three-quarter naked woman, and you sit in his line of vision, and you basically just feel her up and long enough for him to look over and pay attention to you. I find that kind of thing to be just a little bit crass, personally. Anyway, there we go. Yeah, it's turned into a long night. I was hoping to keep it a short night. I've got to go. I've got a few things to do in the back room, and then, honey, I'm coming home. And it's really great to see so many of the Aurora Republic people here in the live show, and Olimir especially is a real pleasant surprise. That guy is the second deadliest pilot I've ever seen. And we're gonna practice as a flight element, and we're gonna train those eagles up as teams. We're gonna do twos and twos and twos, watching out for each other and stuff. So I'm looking forward to it. I think that'll do it. When might this be up on YouTube? This might be up on YouTube right now. I'm going to turn off the lights. I'm going to upload it and get it done. And then I'm probably going to go home and get some sleep, but somewhere in the next couple days, I will get back into the practice arena commander, and I will start shooting down bad guys with guns at 4 kilometers beyond visual range. Can't see them yet. Just blow them up. Takes practice, but once you can do it, you feel good. It's good. You can't be a pretend president or a pretend squadron leader and be a miserable shot and a lousy politician. You don't have to be the best, but you got to be good. So that'll do it. All right. Thanks very much for joining us, everybody. It's a good time. Good to have everybody here. Sorry about all the stress in the beginning and the late start, but we will hopefully see you again next Thursday night. Let's check, because Bill's doing some traveling. You will not see me next Thursday night because I will be in Redlands next Thursday night. If I can do the show on Wednesday, I will, but it's a long day, so I'm not making any promises. But in any event, we'll be here. Yeah, there's Olimir. Olimir, you and I together, we're gonna get you that M7, put it on the front of your Vanguard, and then we're gonna go out there. I got to get you I got to get you 4 assailant 4s as well. Then we're going to go out into the verse, and you and I together, just the two of us, we're going to clean up every one of these Matador bastards. We're just going to simply execute them. We're just going to go out there and jump them and execute them. There's a group of some very bad guys called Matadors. They're relatively new term in gaming called griefers, which means they're not playing, and they're not even playing pirates or playing bad guys. They're simply ramming into ships to blow things up, simply to get, just simply to be elements of chaos and grief. And my favorite thing I said last time in Redlands was, on some level, the video game world is the real world. And this is the fantasy world. Down there are consequences for these kind of things. Down there, if you're a bully and a bastard, you pay for it. Down there, helping people comes naturally to folks, and most people trust each other. And down there, you work and you get paid. And when you get paid, you buy things you want. And usually the things you want are things that allow you to work harder and make more money. It's much more real in the computer world than it is up here in California, that's for sure. Anyway, all right, that'll do it. So thanks for joining us. We're going to hit the stop button. And we will stop the recording, so we will see you next time right here on the Stratosphere Lounge.